I'm going to introduce you into the basics of GST because you are going to be our future lawyers for this program. What is GST? GST is Goods and Service Tax. It is an indirect tax or consumption tax used in India on supply of goods and services. It came into effect from 1st July 2017 through the implementation of the 101st Amendment of the Constitution of India by the Indian government. It had the assent of the President of India. GST has subsumed almost all the indirect taxes like central excise, service tax, VAT, octroi, sales tax, etc. About 16 taxes in all. Before GST, assessees had to maintain records for every concerned department, and it was very difficult for a small businessman to reply to 40 different departments on a regular basis and bear the brunt of lapses, if any. No, at that time, I remember when I was working in the department, we used to visit all these assessees and tell them कि service tax nahi bhara, central excise nahi bhara, तो fine de do. We used to ask them why this record is not kept. And also, unfortunately, what they used to say, "Arey, we are one man show and you are telling us to attend 40 different departments, हम कैसे करेंगे? Though we are going to do business or we are going to look into all these departments and pay our taxes separately." It became a real problem, and everybody was waiting for GST because we thought that GST is going to be a one point tax and most of us will be relieved of our problems. The government felt that chalo, we will have to ask for only one tax, and the business community felt that instead of running around different departments, they will run to only one department. That was the reason why we were all waiting for GST. GST is a tax collected by the government and distributed as follows. Transactions made within the state are levied with the central GST and state GST. For interstate transactions and imported goods and services, an integrated IGST is levied by central government. Taxes paid, actually, this is like this, every assessee pays one tax and the tax is shared. Supposing he's paying the tax in Maharashtra, then the tax is shared between Maharashtra and between center. Then there is a in between, they have to pay even that IGST. IGST, if it is between interstates, one state and another state, then there is a tax called IGST, and that is done by the central department. So the central department collects the taxes, and then they are, for the next 5 years, they are supposed to give these taxes to the state governments also. And the same goes with the service tax and central excise. Since GST has come in, for example, I'm talking about service tax and central excise because I worked here, but otherwise, these people are going to have a legacy period of 5 years. So during these 5 years, whatever lapses are there, they should be cleared so that after 2022, GST will be fully established. That's what we think. As of now, the department looks after all this central excise, service tax, as well as GST. In between, we had a lot of disputes with the central government. The central government had a lot of disputes with the assessees. So we came up with a system where we thought about that Kar Vivad scheme. There are a lot of disputes pending in the court due to central excise, service tax, and even GST. So what the department was thinking was that with this Kar Vivad scheme, they came up with an offer saying that wherever there are disputes, assessees will pay 50% of the taxes and 50% they will waive. 40 to 50% and interest penalty depending on certain situations, they may not have to pay that. So many assessees came forward and they paid their 50% taxes and closed their issue with the government. Government feels that they will be able to ease out the service tax and central excise accordingly, and then GST will have no problems. So transactions, so that is why the GST now is a little tough. But I think with time, things will be eased out. Transactions made within the state are levied with central GST and state GST. For interstate transactions and imported goods and services, an integrated IGST is levied by the central government. Taxes paid in the state where goods are consumed. Taxes paid in the place where the goods are consumed and not where they are produced. If the seller and buyer are both in the same state, taxes shared equally between the center and the respective states. For distribution of IGST, where the seller and buyers are of different states, revenue is collected by the center and shared with the states where goods are imported. And today, even there are certain items like alcohol and petroleum and high speed diesel oil, which are still not covered by GST. They are still a state matter, and the state or the center is allowed to take separate issues on that. I think they will be covered up later on. Then after this, during that period when this CGST was introduced, we also had the introduction of the GST Council. The GST Council is like this: the GST rates, rules, and regulations are governed by the GST Council, This GST council consists of the finance ministers of the central government and the state government. At present, there are about 33 members, of which two are from the center, 28 are from the states, all the FMs, and three are from the union territories. They have given their latest report on in March 2021, and we have to look into that report also, because every time the GST council makes changes, the changes are incorporated later on in the whole country. So that has to be given a little importance. The GSTN network, this is the system. The entire GST now works online. It is based on the system called GSTN system. The GSTN network, the software is developed by Infosys Technologies, and the IT network that provides the computing resources is maintained by NIC. NIC was a government portal since long. They have always been maintaining all the transactions of GST online. And even before GST, we had ACES in place, and before ACES also, whatever transactions were there, computer transactions were done by NIC. It is a portal accessible to tax authorities for tracking down every transaction, while taxpayers have the ability to connect for their tax returns. Now the portal is wholly owned by central and state government, having equal shares. When GST had first started, this portal was owned by we had 49% shares by the center, by the government, and 51% was by stakeholders like ICICI, HDFC, etc. But now it is entirely owned by the central and state government. And when this is for us, for the department, they have, it is called an AIO. It is an online procedure wherein every time a person is introduced, he has to operate on the system. He has to fill a form, and that form is sent to Delhi. According to that form, he has to write the details of since when he is posted, what is his designation, etc. Accordingly, he is given a user ID and password, and he has to work in the system according, like as you have it in SAP system. The system is open for a particular person for a particular transaction. So like this is open during the time that he is logged into the during the time that he is posted in that area. Once he is posted out of that area, he is logged out of the system, and the next person who's posted here, he is logged into the system. And this is generally the work of a superintendent in the office. At the range level, it is the superintendent who has to look into AIO. And for the assessees, when he wants to take his registration, he will take it jurisdiction wise. Jurisdiction wise means if he is located in Mumbai, he will see the pin code. The pin code is as per the post office. Depends on where he is located, and as per that, as per the pin code given by the post office, he will apply for registration in that area. The registration matters of central government are in Bombay are with the Churchgate office, and the state GST matters are with the sales tax Bhavan in Baikala. So if an assessee has a problem, he generally has to log into the system. We have got a GSTN portal where the help desk is given, and he can look into the help desk and try to solve his problem. There are many nodal officers appointed for the purpose. There are many help desk numbers given. He can contact the numbers, and he can get his issues solved online. I do not know whether they have got any center now for helping the assessees even in the office. Now we go to the CGST Act. I'm not going to go into everything in the system, but I'll just tell you the main thing that will be helpful to you as lawyers, because in this system a lot of it is online. Let us be aware of one thing, that our entire community, our entire public is, or rather our business community is not totally computer savvy. They depend on the educated class like the CAs, the chartered accountants, the cost accountants, or even the lawyers. They depend on you people, because you are the current generation who knows online matters very well. So if at all you are interested in being a consultant, we have got those GST preparers, GST tax preparers. They are specially meant for the graduates who are BComs especially. They can apply for consultancy. They can be they can be appointed by the government of India. They have to go through an examination. They pass. They have to know all this only GST, state GST, central GST, and they can come as consultants. And later on, there are a lot of GST issues which are taken into the courts. So even today, when I'm in the High Court, I see a lot of these youngsters there in the High Court attending to issues of the GST. They have got quite a few clients, and I feel that this GST is going to be a growing business. Shortly, we have got, I mean, as of today, we don't have any GST tribunal. We have got CSTAT matters, so all the issues are going directly to High Court. We look forward to a GST tribunal also, and I think our current generation of lawyers can look into indirect taxes, GST as an indirect taxation, which would be useful to them. And then later on, even the direct and indirect taxes are also in the same court. So possibly they could look at this as their future subject also. CGST Act 2017 has about 174 sections, so I will not go into all that. I'll just tell you the main things. Section 2 of the Act has got registration. Registration covers all the definitions, which in all other bare acts. We in GST we initially started with the bare acts. I think this bare acts is very explanatory. If you go through that, all the forms, all the sections, etc., are there in it. We have got CGST rules. We have got classification, CGST classification also. That's a separate book altogether. We are going by the harmonious system of checking the system, because we are a part of the customs organization worldwide. So according to this harmonious system, every product that you manufacture is coded. Every product that is made or traded is coded in the system. So that the book on valuation, on classification, etc., will give you all the details. You can just Google it and you'll be able to find all the information that you require. Government also has the Bare Act, so I think that would be useful to the students to understand the basics of GST. Now, every person, in simple language, every person who makes taxable supply of goods and services or both from any of the special categories stated, he shall be liable to be registered. And generally, the aggregate turnover, generally a person whose aggregate turnover in the last year was around 40 lakhs, it will be necessary for him to take GST registration. Now, what happens is when you talk about the aggregate turnover, we look at the PAN details as per PAN. If a man has got one PAN for the whole of the country, then the aggregate turnover will be taken as his PAN. In that case, he will have to take his GST registration. Another thing is that the GST registration now is state wise. If he is having different companies in different states, then he will have to take his registration for every state. In the state also, he may have many factories, many offices, so he has to take register. His principal place of business will be at one place. Like, if he is having many offices, his records will be in all the offices, but his principal place of business will be in the main office. So he has to declare which will be his main office, so that the department also finds it easy to transact with him. If he was having a license under existing law could be those 16 acts, central excise, service tax, etc. If he already was a if he already had a registration under any of those acts, the registration automatically continues in CGST. Now, what happens is that sometimes there have been assessees who have closed up with CGST and who have closed up with central excise, and they have not come back to CGST, and they're also filing income tax returns. So what the government has seen, that these assessees were there but they have not come here, so action is being taken against them and they are supposed to pay fine for not filing of returns in the past period. That system is going on because the system was online since 2009. That time we had central excise, service tax, now we have got CGST, so all the records are available with the government. They are asking you to file your returns if you have not filed, and the minimum fine penalty has to be paid. Assessees could register under CGST or SGST Act online as they thought fit. If the business is transferred, then registration will be effective from the date of such transfer or succession or certificate of incorporation issued by the registrar of companies. Value of goods of a registered job worker. Now we also have job workers who do work on behalf of big business people. So they say that the value of the goods of a registered job worker will not be included in his turnover. Special category rates are as mentioned in 279A of the Constitution. As per Section 23, certain categories are exempted, like persons supplying exempted goods or services, or agriculturists who produce out of out of cultivation of land. Like, for example, vegetables, you don't have GST on vegetables. Categories of persons who have to take registration. These are the categories. Registrations are also meant for people like manufacturers, traders, electronic commerce operators. Today, the commerce operator is also given importance. So there are around 12 categories of people who have to take registration. The registration procedure is mentioned in Section 25 of the Act. Registration has to be taken state-wise if he has many businesses in the same state. He will have a principal place of business for every state. The registration certificate shall be displayed. It is important that the registration certificate shall be displayed in prominent place in their premises. A PAN card, Aadhaar card, bank details, etc., are the documents which must be given for registration. An application should be made as per PIN code issued by postal authorities. A copy of the application and registration certificate is shown alongside. Now, we have taken copies of that. I'll show you at the end of the session. For any amendments later on, approval of proper officer will not be required. And if liable, supposing later on they realize that there is a mistake with registration, the proper officer will give him a personal hearing, because that is natural justice. He has to give him a personal hearing, and then he can reject the registration. But this very rarely happens. Registration can be cancelled on grounds like not filing return. Supposing a person files his registration but does not file his return for a long time, does not pay taxes, does not pay the taxes due to be paid to the government for a long time, does not start his business for many months after taking registration, then those are grounds for him, for the department to cancel his registration as per section 27 of the act. And nowadays the department is even doing that if people are not paying the taxes for for quite a few returns. Now, after registration, we next go to the tax invoice. Tax invoices is mentioned in section 33 of the act. Every registered person supplying goods or services has to issue a tax invoice before removal of the goods or before delivery of the goods and services to the recipient. The tax invoice should contain details like quantity, value, rate, tax applicable, and details of the buyer. Nowadays, now earlier we were having these mandatory invoices. So what used to happen was, people used to just sometimes people used to prepare the tax invoice and not issue it. Sometimes people used to issue it but commit mistakes on that. Sometimes they used to cancel it. Now they say that e-invoice is also mandatory. E-invoice is mandatory for assessees whose turnover was 50 crores last year, and it will be effective from 1st April to 2021 for business to business transactions. Business with more than 5 crores will be mentioning a 6-digit HSN code. As I told you, we are having that customs kind of thing. So businesses with more than 5 crores will have 6-digit HSN code. Businesses up to 5 crores will have 4-digit HSN code, and businesses doing export will have 8-digit HSN code or B2B transactions. India is a member of the World Customs Organization since 1971, and the purpose of this HSN code is to make GST globally accepted. We are otherwise also, since long, we have been accepting the global systems of classifying our products. Stringent action is taken against issuance of fake invoices. Invoices have to be serially numbered for every financial year. A copy of the invoice is shown. That copy of the invoice I will show you later. There are certain categories of people who are exempted from issuance of invoices, like if the value is less than 200, or if the assessee is supplying exempted goods, tax paid on reverse charge mechanism, etc. These are the people who are exempted from issuing invoices. For example, today even the individual lawyers, they're not supposed to pay tax, but it is paid on the on reverse basis. As per section 35, every registered person shall keep an account of production of goods, inward, outwards, supply stock of goods, input tax credit availed and utilized for every place of his business. As per section 36, he will preserve the records up to 72 months of filing annual returns. Generally, we have a time period because we can't keep earlier it was 5 years. Now they say that you can keep your records up to 6 years, that is 72 months of filing your annual returns. After that, when you're destroying also, you have to keep a record. You have to mention it somewhere that you are destroying these records. For us in our department, before destruction, we have to inform the office and then destroy the old records. Earlier we had those manual returns, so they were occupying a lot of place. Now, I think manually online it will be done differently. As per sections 37 and 38, he will furnish details of outward supplies and inward supplies. As per section 39, every registered person, barring exceptions like input service distributor, NRI, etc., shall furnish in such form and manner as may be prescribed a return electronically. This is a very important document for the registered person because he is assessing it himself, and for the GST office because he is liable to action in case of errors. Now, what happens is that the returns have to be filed carefully because it is looked into by both the GST department as well as the other departments also checking his other departments like the preventive sections, etc. They also look into the errors of the assessee. So it's better that assessee takes precaution while filing his return. Then he has to be sure that he's filing his return on time. If he files it after the late date, after the last date for filing return, then he has to pay the fine for late filing of returns. He has to pay for tax not paid even for if he does not pay the tax and later on he has to pay the penalty for the taxes, uh, for the late payment of taxes. He does not often, and if he does not pay this tax often, then the registration automatically gets revoked. And then again, to get himself back into the system, he has to pay all the dues along with the fine, penalty, whatever, and the department then returns his, allows him to re-register again. Again, if the buyer pays a tax to the seller on the goods purchased, but the seller does not deposit the amount to the government. Now, this is a very funny thing, you know. They say that even if the buyer makes the payment to the seller and the seller does not pay the payment into the government of India, then the buyer will not be allowed to file the next return. Action will be taken against the buyer because in his jurisdiction it will be shown that he has taken the credit without proper documents. And now the buyers are shouting that why action is not taken against the seller? Why only the buyer should be penalized even after making the payment? So this matter is now pending in many courts. We hope there will be a solution soon and action will be taken even against the seller for not depositing the money collected from the buyer and paid into the government of India. This step, I think now we have to wait and see what happens to the results which come out. Recently, many such issues have reached the court. The department can only act against the buyer in his jurisdiction and not the seller who is not in his jurisdiction. Because the buyer needs support, not the seller just now. We have to wait and watch. Since returns are based on self-assessment, the department also compares. Now, there's another thing. You know, when we are talking about self-assessment, the returns are assessed by the buyer, by the assessee. He assesses the returns and puts it online. He thinks that everything is correct, and even we think that everything is correct. Now, even after some time, even after a matter of years, the department also finds out from third party transactions whether the buyer has declared everything correctly or not. These days, what has happened is that the department looks into the TDS. TDS is the income tax returns filed by the assessee, and they notice that sometimes there are items which are not mentioned in service tax but mentioned in the income tax returns. So at such a time, they issue a statement to the party, and if the party does not respond, then they give him a show cause notice, and the show cause notice is finally adjudicated by the department. And in case they have a problem with the, if in case assessee still disputes the point, he the next is the remedy for him is that he goes to high court and he files a petition. If he files a writ petition against the department saying that he is right and still he is made to pay the taxes. So this part has actually, it's a good place for our lawyers also. We have to wait and watch since returns, this self-assessment thing. Since returns are based on self-assessment, the department also compares the details given with third-party information evaded to collect taxes evaded due to non-disclosure in GST returns. Now, slum sale is also not recognized, though I think it should be called an exempted item. A slum sale is the second used item that you're selling. Another point is when a person issues input tax credit without corresponding goods, which we normally term as fake invoices. Sometimes it so happens that a person takes credit of the goods after paying his tax, but he doesn't take the goods. Now, what happens is this also leads to some doubts from the department. Maybe we feel that he's taking goods on the basis of fake invoices. The goods don't generally come to him. So that is another point which has also reached the courts, and the matters are not finally decided, but it is an issue which is quite hot today about fake invoices, because even action is being taken against the assessees, and it is now going on in the court, so we cannot say it's all matter is sub judice here, so there is no decision as yet. Due care must be taken whilst preparing online GST returns. So the assessees have to file returns either they file monthly returns, quarterly returns, annual returns. Then there are about 38 returns which each assessee has to file during the year. So, and there are the dates for every return is like the monthly return has to be filed by the 20th of next month. Then the quarterly return has to be filed by the 24th of next month. So like that, there are different dates fixed for the last date of filing returns. And assessees should invariably file the returns and make the payments also along with the returns, failing which action is being taken by the department. Then there is a scheme called composition scheme that is also filed by the 18th of the month. Person who doesn't want to take SENVAT credit and whose business is less than 1.5 crores, he can approach the department and ask for this composition scheme. In which case, he pays a fixed amount, and he cannot pass SENVAT credit nor can he take SENVAT credit. He has to Then there are other returns which now this year also you have to file the GSTR 9, then GSTR 9B, etc. Those are annual returns. And I think the dates are going to be extended because of this COVID. Actually, the date was in this month, but now due to COVID, the Supreme Court has also said that the dates are extended to June 30th June. So let us wait and see what's happening, whether any circular is coming out. For certain categories, digital signatures are mandatory, and this year, due to COVID, persons are requesting for extension of last dates because what has happened, the digital tokens are locked inside their rooms. So they are requesting due to COVID, they cannot go to their office, so they want the dates to be extended. We hope it will be extended. Copy of the return is placed. A copy of the return, some kind of return is placed online, but if you have to see everything, then you can see it in the barracks. All the returns, all the formats are given in the barracks. Only thing is take the updated systems now, so you'll be able to get an idea of what really we have to do in GST. Section 54 of the Act deals with refund of tax. A registered person may claim refund of unutilized input credit at the end of any tax period. A tax period is the period for which return is required to be furnished. A taxpayer can claim refund of unutilized ITC on monthly basis. A person claiming refund of tax, interest, penalty, fees, or any other amount other other refunds of integrated tax paid on goods exported out of India may file an online application in the form GST RFD01. Actually, these are different formats. RFD01 is for filing the application for refund through this common portal or the facilitation center notified by the commissioner. They provide then this RFT. They provided that refund relating to balance in the cash register will be made according to refunds furnished for that period in form GSTR 3 or GSTR 4 or GSTR 7. They have those monthly returns, and the amount balance shown of there must be equal to the balance shown on this cash register. Case by me. Refund regarding supplies to SEZ will be made by supplier of goods or services after evidence of receipt of goods or services by the specified officer of that zone. In case of deemed export, the application shall be filed by recipient of deemed export. The refund shall be claimed in the last return filed by him. The application shall be forwarded with the documentary evidence if the refund is claimed on the basis of any order. Then that reference, supposing now there is an order in original or there is an order in appeal, etc., where a refund has to be given to the assessee, then he has to quote the number and date of that order and apply for refund accordingly. In respect of exports, the number and date of the shipping bills with the relevant export invoices, they have to be given as evidence. A statement containing the invoice numbers and bank realization certificate. Nowadays, in the case of export, the department also insists on the bank realization certificate to ensure that the goods were exported, and there is a realization statement available from the bank. Earlier, this was not being insisted upon, but nowadays it is being done. Then a declaration that the SEZ has not availed input credit on the amount claimed as refund in case of provisional assessment. The reference number of the final order and the date must be mentioned. There are many more reasons why a person can claim refund. Now, when he claims a refund, acknowledgement must be given to him by the department in form RFD02. If there are any deficiencies in the claim made by the assessee, then the department will give a form RFD03 to clarify the deficiencies. Then the provisional refund will be granted after verifying the genuineness. He will make an order in form GST4. If he is satisfied, he will make the order in form GST4 sanctioning the refund within 7 days of acknowledgement. A payment advice shall be issued in form RFD05. Refund order will be issued in form RFD06. If the refund is adjusted against any pending dues, then RFD07. Sometimes we have some dues which are pending and the assessee doesn't pay it. When such refund is given, he agrees. So we have to adjust that amount. That is when it is called GST. RFD07 will be issued. If the amount is not admissible, he shall issue a notice. If the department doesn't agree with the application, then he will issue a notice to him under RFD08, and then the court procedures will proceed. A notice will be given, then an order will be issued. The party can dispute and go to court after that, and then the proceedings will continue. Now, for us, almost every order is an appealable order, and when you appeal, there is a particular period. So you have to see the period whether it is 60 days or whatever. In case you are going beyond the period, these days the court doesn't grant condonation of delay, because I've been watching the hearings in the High Court, and the judge is very reluctant to give any reasons for condemnation, to accept any reasons for condemnation of delay. So as far as possible, try to stick to the deadline. Appealable orders will be issued after giving an opportunity to be heard. In case of delay in payment, interest is payable. If there are late, if refunds are given late, or if there is any delay, nowadays the government has insisted on interest being applicable. So I think there is an interest act which has to be looked into at that time. The amount refunded but not paid due to some deficiencies, this amount which is not given to the party will be kept in consumer welfare fund, and after the issue is resolved, the amount is disbursed. Next part is classification. GST rates are based on HSN or SAC codes for various goods and services. As I told you, we are part of the customs organization worldwide. So all the goods are classified according to that HSN. That is what is said over here. Harmonious index, something. I don't know the full words, the full form of it. We had those books because they were alphabetically given at our time, way back in 2004, I think. They had given us books alphabetically from A to Z, and we had to look into every book, and we had to look into every reason why the product was classified in that particular under that particular heading. Nowadays, I don't see that book, but it is as per that. It is an international code given accepted by our government also. The government had proposed a four-tier tax structure for all goods and services under slabs. Now we have slab rates. Today we have four slab rates: 5, 12, 18, and 28. Maybe I may be wrong in this thing, but we have these four slab rates and zero for the exempted goods. Slab rates roughly are nil rate of duty for items like cereal, grains, sanitary napkins, etc. Then you have 5% for sugar, spices, etc. 12% for items like computer, monitors, spectacles, 18% for hair oil, etc. Then the AC, refrigerator, etc., they're supposed to be luxury items, so they are at a higher rate. This section needs a little study because most of the disputes in GST are due to classification. The section has to be studied carefully. Whenever changes are made by the GST Council, as it has an impact on government revenue, certain items like soft drinks and luxury items would attract cess. Earlier we had cess, but I think now cess is not there. Many disputes arise on this topic alone. Court has held, like for example, court has held that a woman's footwear without backstrap is sandal and not chappal. Chapatis and rotis are also having different classification. Something is at 5%, something goes at 8%, so 18%. So we have to check exactly what it is, what are we doing, and how is it as per our classification. Next, we go to the e-way bill. E-way bill is an electronic permit for interstate transport of goods. Officers tally the e-way bill listed with the goods carried in it. The transporter's ID and PIN code is compulsory since October 2018. Actually, because of this e-way bills and invoices, etc., the government is trying to stop corruption and trying to stop this things like corruption. People are just taking things out without paying the taxes, etc. So they're trying to plug all these loopholes. This is one way out which the government is trying. Earlier, people used to send their goods out without any invoice, without any things, and there was this kind of. Nowadays, you have all this checking on every part of the road. You have this cameras put up everywhere. But there was a time when all this thing was new, all this thing was not there. So now the government is trying to plug these loopholes in many ways, thinking that they should get revenue in the right way. There should be some kind of transparency. We hope for that. Reverse mechanism in this case. In this case, the receiver or the buyer pays the tax, and the supplier is not. A supplier does not pay the tax. What happens in this reverse mechanism? I'll give you the example of the lawyers again. An individual lawyer is not supposed to pay any tax during the service tax period. Even now, he doesn't pay. It is a reverse mechanism. If he is giving service to anybody, then his client has to pay the tax. Same goes with some big companies. There are there are small people doing labor jobs. They are not covered under GST because they are not in that within that limit. Such cases, the big unit has to pay the amount on reverse charges. He will not. The small man will not be able to pay. He does not pay. He's not in GST, but the big man has to pay it. So this is called reverse mechanism. Somebody has to pay the tax to the government of India, either the supplier or the buyer in such a case. GST payment. Regular taxpayer must use PMT 06 challan towards electronic cash register. Now, earlier what used to happen was that there were many. I remember we had visited one company. That person had, that time we had this challans. Challans was in four forms. One form had to be given to the government, one form had to be kept with the taxpayer, one form was given to the bank, and one form was given to the, I think we had to keep two forms. I forgot about the fourth form. So what used to happen was, there were some assessees who wanted to play mischief. They did not have the money. So they had made those government stamps. They made the government stamps. So during audit, when we had visited some unit, the party had shown us that the cash was paid. We thought there was a stamp of the bank and all, cash was paid, etc. Then slowly, when we checked up with the government records, when we checked up with the cash register of the government, that one copy goes to the government. We noticed that those copies were not having the stamps. Those copies were not there. Then we asked the department where we asked the assessee where those copies have gone. Then the assessee admitted his mistake. He said, "Yes, actually I had cheated. Sorry, I will make the payment now." And he made the payment along with penalty and interest. Now there may be assessees like that, and they know that small man is not audited every day. When we used to do audit that time, when we were in the department, we had different categories of people above 5 crores, then A, B, C, D, and E. So these people who were in E category were supposed to be the smallest man, and they were the ones who committed the biggest mistakes. But they were not noticed because every E category person was not audited. A, B, C was compulsory. A was compulsory. B was compulsory. C was not very regular. What we used to do was we used to count the number of working days in the month. Supposing we had 22 working days in the month, we had to reserve a number of days only for A and B. Rest of the days were covered under C and D, C, D, and E. So we hardly could cover up all the E category people. But now this is a good thing, by having this PMT 06 challan, which is to be generated online, there is less scope for the assessees to cheat. There is less scope for cheating in any way. So everything is accounted online. Now this will generate this. He has to file this PMT 06 at the time of filing GSTR. He will generate a challan, and the validity of the challan will be 15 days. So it becomes easy for the department also. Then we have another thing called inspection, search, seizure, and arrest, which is provided in section 67 to 71 of the Act, where an officer not below the rank of Joint Commissioner has reason to believe that the supplier has suppressed information relating to goods or services or input tax credit or contravened any provisions of the Act, he may authorize in writing any officer to inspect the premises of the taxable person or the person engaged in transporting goods or the owner of the premises then, and then he may confiscate or seize the goods under Panchanama or seal or break open the door, etc. The person whose goods are taken can take copies of the documents seized by the department for his record. The goods seized should normally be returned within 6 months to the possessor, and the time may further be extended if necessary. In case of perishable items, goods may be disposed of as soon as it is seized, as per the norms prescribed. The officer shall prepare inventory of the goods seized. What happens is sometimes, these people, we get information, or we come to know that XYZ has suppressed some information. He is manufacturing good amount of goods, but he is not paying any tax to the department. In such a time, we first issue summons to him, asking him to produce all the records that he has, the document that we have. We generally issue the summons to the authorized person of the company. Earlier, it was the superintendent who could do it. Now we have to take part. Now it has to go through proper channel, and the proper officer generally is a joint commissioner. Once he allows it, we first issue the summons. We call the party, ask him to give all the documents. The documents are in order, then there is no problem. Then we also record the statement of the person. Now sometimes when we record the statement, record it in the presence of witnesses, so that the person should not say that we have forced him to do something or whatever. Then we draw the panchanama, and after that, if required, then if we feel that something is really wrong, then we go ahead, and as per the permissions given to us from above, then his goods are seized, or sometimes the factory is sealed. The reason why we do that is because the tax is not paid to the government of India now these days. And then we even insist the bank, we request the bank to freeze that amount of tax which is due to the government of India. These things happen as an extreme. It doesn't happen on a day-to-day basis. It's just in case of a very habitual offender who has, and the tax is going, a good amount of tax is not paid to the government of India. Then only these things like search, seizure, etc. Generally, we try to tell the assessee to pay the taxes on time. These are very few instances of these things happening. And then later on, when he makes a payment, then the goods are released, and whatever. Later on, even these matters go to the court, and the court continues its action. In our time, also there was a case where there was something like 100% EOUs. Those days, it so happened that there was a company who had they were allowed to import duty-free goods, and they were supposed to reprocess the goods and send it abroad, send it back to the place from where they had got the goods. What had happened was this company played mischief. They took the duty-free goods and sold it in the open market. And again, they started buying goods from the market, and they were taking credit on that. Government realized that there was a mistake, and they told them to pay the taxes. The machinery also was sold by the company. The matter was in court for a long time. Ultimately, the party was told to pay. By the time the party had to pay, he went to the court and he went to the thing, what do you call that? He went and said that he was an insolvent, and he said that his company should be liquidated. Now the matter is still pending. Issues are going on. This is the period before GST. It's gone right up to Supreme Court. We have to wait and see what happens after that. Where the proper officer notices that taxes not paid or short paid or erroneously refunded or input tax credit is wrongly availed or utilized for any reason, then any reason other than fraud. This is about show cause notices. Then he can issue a show cause notice specifying the issue, the provisions contravened, the period and the amount of duty evaded, and the interest, fine, and penalty payable. The show cause notice is a tool which the government uses as a final resort. That in case party is not making the payment and he is still registered with us, then first we just take a simple action like you issue the show cause. Party has to give a reply within 30 days. He responds to the show cause, giving reasons why he has not paid. If the department accepts the show cause, and he pays the duty and closes the issue before issuance of the order in original. In that time, in such cases, generally the certain things like penalty, etc., is waived. Or supposing the order in original is issued, then within a short time he can also make the payment, and other things are waived. Maybe fine or penalty, something like that is waived. But if he continues with it, then he has to either make the payment or he has to dispute the matter. Again, he goes back to the appellate tribunals. He has got all these appellate steps where he can go to the tribunal. He can go to the High Court if there is a matter of and he can go to the Supreme Court if there is a classification dispute. So the show cause is finally adjudicated after giving him since the department is an adjudicating authority, we have to give him a chance. We have to give natural justice to the party. In case we don't give natural justice to him, again, he can appeal before the next court, and he can say that justice was not given. So the order goes back to the original authority, and he is told to see the order refreshed, to prepare the order, to go through the grounds again, refresh it, and prepare a fresh adjudication order. Every order is appealable, and whenever the parties go in appeal, either the department or the assessee, they have to check the period. There is a particular period mentioned. It is generally 2 months, so it's better they go within the period. Otherwise, it may be the orders may not be accepted by the next court. Such orders are, and both the department can approach tribunals, high courts in case of a question of fact and question of law. For High Court, there are only 2 reasons why he can go. Either it has to be a question of fact or a question of law. And these days, the GST issues are coming up. And for Supreme Court, it is a classification dispute or redressal. Now, today is a new thing that has come up. Now, if you see, the budget is disclosed every year. For us in the department, we always concentrate on the budget whenever it is issued, because for the whole year, we have to go as per whatever is mentioned in the budget. So this year, we have to see what the finance bill became an act in March, and even the GST Council has given their details in the month of March. So I think we have to check what the Finance Act has said, and we have to follow the act accordingly. Of course, maybe during the year more changes come up, but every year we always look into the budget first, and we go as per the requirements of the budget during the year. Today, e-commerce has grown extensively in recent times due to internet and mobiles. Nowadays people are doing a lot of buying and selling on internet, and that is why e-commerce has grown, and it has also attracted GST. In this scenario, seller registers on e-commerce platform like Amazon, takes pictures and uploads the website along with the description and pricing of the goods. Then the buyer orders a product and the seller dispatches to the buyer. Either he dispatches to the e-commerce operator's platform, or he dispatches to the buyer. Then the buyer orders a product and the seller dispatches to the buyer. Either he dispatches to the e-commerce operator's platform, or he dispatches to the buyer. or he makes a system of shipment to the buyer. The operator charges a commission for the sale since he assists the sellers in selling the products. Every supplier has to maintain invoice details of the items sold to registered taxable persons. The invoices must be GST compliant. He may have to give the IRN or OR code for B2B invoices from the invoice generation portal in case of e-invoicing rules. In this case, the GST will be taxed at the place where they are consumed. In case within state, he will pay CGST and SGST, and in intrastate, he will pay IGST also. In case of error, the payment will be made. Supposing he commits a mistake and pays it in IGST, thinking that it was outside of the state, he has to make the payment and then he can claim the refund from the government. Then the Finance Act, e-way bill in case of detention, seizure, etc. The thing, it is the tax payable is 200% of the tax payable. Amount payable is 200% of the tax payable in case of detention, seizure, etc. It is paid under 129 of the CGST Act. Input tax credit in case of mismatch of GSTR1 and GSTR3B. Notice will be given and registration. Suppose, as I told you, if the buyer and seller does not make the payment into the government of India, then notice is given to the buyer. It will be given to him, and if they feel that the buyer is not giving any answer, then his registration will be cancelled. Now that is a dispute which is going on. Then HSN code as per notification. These are the new things that has come out in the Finance Act of 2021. In this, they are insisting that the HSN code should be 5 crores. For if the assessee is having business up to 5 crores, then he should have a 4-digit HSN code. If he is having a business of more than 5 crores, then he should have a 6-digit HSN code. And if he is exporting his goods, then he should have an 8-digit HSN code. E-invoices are mandatory where aggregate turnover was more than 50 crore in any year after 2017. For opting for composition scheme, person should apply before 31st March 2021. Now refund, the system also says that refund for 18-19 can be claimed before 31st March. GSTR 9 and GSTR 9C, where the turnover is 2 crores and 5 crores, more than 2 crores and more than 5 crores, the due date is extended to 31st March. That is as per notification number 4 of 2021. Now that also we have to check out, because again the Supreme Court has given an extension date up to June 2021. Copy of the invoice, the registration certificate and the returns, a sample copy. It's just a random copy of the invoice, a copy of the registration, and a copy of the returns. These are the only 3 papers I've shown, but otherwise if you go through the bare acts, everything is very clearly mentioned. All those 9 returns, the application for registration, the registration copy, etc. It's all shown. This is a registration copy, registration certificate, which is issued.
Ma'am, can you highlight on the inspection and seizure part?
See, as far as inspection and seizure part is concerned, we feel, today also many of our business community is not fully aware that everything is online. Now, if you go to, so sometimes they still try to cheat in some ways or the other, or maybe it's I will not say that the businessman is cheating. Maybe it is an interpretation. We think one side, they think the other side. So what we do as a matter of as a first step, we just issue something like summons. We issue summons to the party and we tell him to bring his records, show the record that he has, show whatever records he has, so that we can be sure about what he's saying. There are times when after seeing the records, we still feel there are doubts. In which case, we take orders to visit that factory. Visit that factory means sometimes we call it raid. I'll give you an example of what we did in the period before GST. That time there was this system, where many assessees did not know the systems very well, and there was a lot of tax evasion, especially here in Bombay. So when we used to get orders, as per those orders, we had to go to the company, and what used to happen, many companies had branches all over, they had residential premises also. So I, being a lady, I was sent to the residential premises of some company. When we enter a residential premise, first we have to show ourselves. We have to show the order under which we are entering the place. Then we have to even allow ourselves to be checked before the raid happens. Then they allow us to see then we take the documents that are important to us from the department's point of view, the documents or whatever we require from there, and we show the party, okay, this is what we have taken. in the documents which are useful to our case. We have been saying this. You have evaded. You have not disclosed, suppressed this information. So on grounds of suppression, we take it under their panchanama. We even sign, get the document signed. Then we take it to our office and we investigate. The investigation process takes some time. So during investigation, even if questions are asked under RTI, we have that permission. I think under Section 8 of RTI, we can say that we are investigation is going on, matter is sub judice, so we are not supposed to disclose this information. So during that time of search, after searching, we do this next part of investigating. The investigation goes on, and after investigation, we realize certain things are wrong. If they are wrong, we correct it. Either we have to, supposing we are seizing the goods, we tell them that these are the goods seized, or the factory is sealed, or supposing the bank, we write to the bank in case we want to freeze the accounts, freeze the bank accounts according to the amounts that they have sent. Then we write to the bank that this is the amount. I mean, just freeze so and so amounts, and the bank informs a party that this amount will not be allowed till the time the department resolves the problem. Then the parties make the payment, etc., and or they visit the court, and some solution is found later on, and the court matter goes on for years. So as far as possible, we try not. It's always better not to go into these steps. Try to We try to tell the assessees to make the payments and make business easy for them, and make things easy for the department also. That, and another way, before we do all that, we try to persuade the assessee, try to request the assessee, try to persuade the assessee, make him understand that this is where he is falling wrong and he should correct himself. If he is able to correct himself, mostly 90% of the cases they are okay. Just a few cases where the assessees are very adamant, and in such cases we take the steps. Sometimes the assessees go one step further. They go to the courts and they say that they are insolvent. They show the last balance sheet and they say we have no money, we cannot pay anything back. That is another extreme, because in such cases sometimes even our officers get into trouble for allowing. I mean, we won't call it allowing. That time it was not in GST. That time we were doing everything manually. In manual processes, there was a lot of responsibility on the officers. So today, when with this GST in place, we feel a lot relieved. At least that responsibility is not on us. The assessee is, we realize that the assessee is committing a mistake, and there are steps to rectify him in his own way. That is the difference today. We prefer this
Okay,
online
ma'am.
from this point of view. But the only thing is that in online, our officers as well as the assessees are not fully they're not fully aware of this new systems, online systems. It will take some time. So till that time, we all depend on the technical experts. Like today, also I had to rely on your office to be able to talk to these people online, to talk to your
Yes, ma'am.
students online. So these are things that will come up, and I think now that country is going digital, it's going to be a matter of time, because even today's students are made to learn everything online. See, even the law students are made to learn everything online. There was a time when we had to when we were studying law. I remember we used to hardly go to office. We used to hardly go to class. We were more into our office because we had this morning class and evening class. But today you have law as a full-time course, and there is more concentration, and we have better quality of people today. And I think these are going to be the future of the nation. So it's always better that they know the right systems, and they are able to learn transparency and work with the right frame of mind.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, on that, can you elaborate the career prospects that are there for
And
law
the career
students? Yeah.
prospects now, especially if they are consultants, if they want to be consultants now as they are students. Because see, when I was working, I found a lot of students coming to me applying for registration for their assessees. They were consultants for different say business people. So what they used to do was that they used to first in the mornings they used to come to my office, and then they used to go to college. Now recently, the after this GST has come in, the government has started a scheme called Return Preparer Scheme. For this Return Preparer Scheme, I think in 2019 they had many preparers for the department, and I was also there when I had when I saw those columns. These were all graduates, mostly commerce graduates, and they had applied for the post of return preparers. So they were preparing the returns and the registrations for the assessees, and they were answerable to the assessees. So they were getting, I think they were getting paid for the services that they were giving. Now recently also, This return preparers was for the period up to March 31st. Nasin Faridabad has taken these applications online. I do not know whether the application, whether there is any extension of date. This, if these students are interested, they should, I think they should try to contact Nasin and find out what are the schemes for getting this job of, for getting this post of return preparers. And then these are for the, for preparing the returns. Now for the later on systems, like, the GST issues, there are now GST being a new system, there will be a lot of problems. And most of these, and many of these problems will be put in the tribunals. See, because you have the appellates, we have the appellate stages, commissioner appeals, you have the appellate tribunals, you have the high courts, the Supreme Court, etc. So at every level, we have lawyers in all those places. What happens is that many people don't know of these advocates. There has to be some system where even the advocates can take them up. Now, when I go to high court, see a lot of young people coming in the courts and fighting these GST matters. They're all well confident, because they have their systems in place. They have got big books. Some of them are employed with big groups of advocates, and so those people also give them a chance to put up, to fight, to argue their cases in the courts. And they're doing quite well for themselves. They have hopes, they feel that after some time even they will be judges, because generally most of the lawyers become judge. I mean, most of the judges have started their career as lawyers, so they have a scope in this indirect taxation. And then what happens now in the courts, in our court, especially in high court, we have this indirect taxation as well as direct taxation, income tax matters also. So these lawyers take up both direct and indirect taxation. And once you know the system well, then there's no harm if you want to apply even as a panel counsel. Panel counsel, you can apply after some years, I think 3 years or 5 years they take. And senior panel counsel is taken after some years, 8 or 10 years, I think. So if they're serious, then they could also be panel counsels for the government of India, because we are recruited by the government of India. So then slowly, they can find their careers for themselves in this taxation, the field of taxation, especially those students who have done their law with their LLM also, the masters in law with the taxation groups, group 4 and group 8, I think are the taxation groups. It would be, I mean, this is our upcoming career, so they can think about it, because GST is here to stay.
What are the advantages and disadvantages? The plus and minus of GST. You've been in this for
Yes,
so many years. Yes, ma'am.
yes, since I worked for more than 30 years, around 35 years in the old system. Earlier, we had a system called ModVat, way back in before 86. So we used to jokingly call it Modavat, because assessees could take credit. That was the first time when assessees could take that provisional credit, etc., and not pay cash. Instead of cash, they could take some part as credit and some part as cash. Then later on, after 1986, it was called Senvat credit. Assessees could use the raw materials and take credit of that, and then while paying, it was a value-added tax. No? So you add a little more amount, your labor, your profit, etc., and that becomes your final amount. And then when you give it to the next person, that person again takes credit, manufactures the goods, and then again he sells it at a higher rate. So that is called value-added tax, and that is what we talk about, Senvat credit, mod VAT. Even now, GST is having that only. But what had happened was that in those times, everything was manually done. So in the manual systems of working, we knew the assessees inside out. If there was any problem, they used to come rushing to our office and say, this is the problem, how to solve it. And we used to solve it. Then again, the responsibility on the officers was also high, because we had to know what was happening in our areas. And the thing was, since we knew the assessees also so well, there were times, like supposing the last date of return was, say, the 5th of the next month. If they would come on 6, they used to say, come on, one day ke liye adjust karo. Because just yesterday, not even 24 hours are over. Just allow us to file the returns one day in advance, one day late. So those things, like even if they file on 5th or 6th, I think that was allowed. But today, when everything is online, everything has to go by time zone. You cannot allow the assessees that kind of leverage. Second thing is, even for classification of products, suppose now most of the assessees at that time were not, even I was not tech savvy. That time when computers were not there. So assessees used to visit the government offices, and they used to ask how this is to be classified, what are the requirements. Then they used to sit down with officers, open the tariff, open the manual, read the books, and understand that this is what we are making, this is the classification, this is the rate of duty. Then they used to also see if there was any exemption allowed to them. So based on that exemption, whether they could pay lesser rate whether it was nil rate, whatever. They used to study the manual and tariff right in the office. They used to come on the very second day of budget. So that was quite okay for us because we also knew that, chalo, assessee is doing his things properly, and we also knew what they were doing. Now, what has happened over time because of this online, assessee doesn't know what is his jurisdiction. He has to go. Even now, if you see, like in your mobile also, if you have a problem, you contact Airtel. Airtel will say dial one for Hindi, one for Marathi, one for English, two for Hindi, three for English. So then you keep dialing the numbers, and half the time you do not even know what he's saying, and you do not know where to go. Go to the Airtel office, he will tell you to wait in queue. Now that time lag is there. Same thing goes with the system. When you're filing online, you do not know what is the status of your registration, especially if you're not computer savvy. Then you try to contact offices. Now, some days like somebody contacted me and said, I've tried to contact offices. I do not know where to contact. I saw your number somewhere, so I want to know what I should do. Then I have to tell them, okay, you contact the GST office and they will try to help you and you will be able to solve your problems. Now, that is how it goes now, because that difficulty will be there for some time. In this online thing, everything is going by system. You cannot approach any officer and say, this is my problem, you tell me whether I'm right or wrong. So sometimes that is why I said all these issues which are happening today is not done purposely. Maybe a real mistake. Assessee does not know whom to contact, and assessee is not computer savvy. So maybe that is why he's committed the mistake. Then there are times where the another problem that the assessees are facing today is, since they are not tech savvy, they have to tell somebody else to do their work. They may tell a CA, they may tell a lawyer, they may tell somebody who knows much better than them to do the work. But that person takes his user ID and password and he starts filing his returns, etc. Some days later, if the assessee doesn't pay his salary on time, or there is some dispute between him and the assessee and his employee, what happens is that fellow just walks out. And this fellow doesn't know that he has to file the returns online, that he has a user ID, he has all these things. Again, he comes running to the office and says, and he's caught because he's not filed his returns. When he comes to the office, he says, oh, my CA has left the job, I do not know what to do. Which case, again, now he says, my whole thing, his problem is that he has relied entirely on the CA and the CA has left him high and dry. And today he has to pay the fine penalty because he has relied on the CA who has left him. So these were things which even I cannot do anything. I felt that if I was in this place, I would be facing the same problem. But then with time, I think these problems will be over. Now, what another thing that happens is that in this manual returns, we could see the records. We had all the records of every assessee with us, so we could understand who was the regular assessees. We could understand where the mistakes are genuinely committed, and all. We knew the assessees quite well. But today in this online, nobody knows who's who. Assessee, we don't have an interface with any assessee. The assessee has to do everything online. The officers are also supposed to do the work that is allotted to them online. So in this scenario, there is something like everybody is in a hurry to reach his goal. And everybody is in a hurry to do his best. Everybody is in a hurry to give the targets that is allowed to him, that is given to him. The assessee also and the department also. So these are certain things which I think will be over time. I think by 2022 it should be things will be much better. I suppose. And
Okay, ma'am.
again, another thing is that there is an economic problem. See, due to COVID, a lot of businesses are hampered. A lot of work is hampered. So you can see it will take some time for us to go on track. Thank you, everyone.